If you thought using taxpayer dollars to bail out big businesses was greedy, you don't want to know what happened next. What's up, everybody? I am Jaspreet Singh and welcome to the Minority Mindset, and welcome back to my old studio, aka my basement. Federal Reserve Bank, or the Fed, is printing hundreds of billions of dollars to bail out big businesses. They're printing more money to fund a $1 trillion stimulus package. And now, for the first time in history, the Fed is printing money to bail out certain wealthy investors who lost money during this recent stock market crash. This investor bailout is uncharted territory. I have never seen anything like this before, and as soon as I saw the Fed talk about this, I couldn't believe my eyes. So I went on the treadmill and went for a run, and then I went back to reread the report because I thought I was dreaming. What the Fed said that they're gonna start doing is a prime example of greed, corruption, and a complete disregard for the American people, because it's going to be you, taxpayers, who have to pay the price for this bailout. So make sure you watch this video until the end, because I'm going to show you exactly what this is going to be costing you. But before we get into that, hit that thumbs up button below, because if you don't, then YouTube doesn't show our video to anybody else. Subscribe to the Minority Mindset YouTube channel, that way you don't miss our new financial education videos every single week. And hit that little notification bell too, because if you don't, then YouTube doesn't let you know when our new videos are released. The Federal Reserve Bank, or the Fed, is known as the central banking system of the United States. But the Federal Reserve Bank isn't a bank. I mean, you and I can't go there to deposit money. It's not a reserve because they don't keep any reserves. And it's not federal. They even say that on their website. And I'm going to show you why this is so important, so make sure you remember this point. The Fed's job is to make sure that our economy is growing adequately. Like when the economy is growing quickly, the Fed's job is to raise interest rates. This way companies and the economy doesn't grow too big too fast. And when the economy is slowing down and we're in a recession, the Fed's job is to cut interest rates. This way borrowing becomes cheaper to stimulate the economy. When the economy and the stock market started nosediving in March 2020, the Fed came out with some emergency measures to stimulate the economy to prevent businesses and people from going into bankruptcy. First, the Fed injected trillions of dollars into banks. This way banks wouldn't run out of money. Second, the Fed cut interest rates all the way down to 0%. This way businesses could borrow money almost for free. This way they had cash to stay in business. And third, the Fed came out and they said that they will print as much money as necessary to fund these corporate bailouts, to fund these stimulus checks, and now they're taking it one step further. That's where these investor bailouts come into play. To really understand how these investor bailouts are going to cost you money, you need to start by understanding the cost of printing so much money. Our paper dollars are just that, paper dollars. It costs 12 cents to print a $100 bill, yet 12 cents can't buy you anything, but a $100 bill will buy you dinner and a t-shirt. The reason is because the government says that our paper dollars have value. But these paper dollars aren't backed by gold or silver or anything tangible. I gave this example in a previous video, but I'm going to give it to you again because you need to understand this to understand what I'm about to tell you. When a crisis happens and the supply of toilet paper becomes very low, now all of a sudden the value of toilet paper goes through the roof because everybody wants toilet paper, but there's no toilet paper out there. There's a very low supply of it. But when times are good, toilet paper is easy to find because it's everywhere. So there's a high supply of toilet paper, and now the value of toilet paper comes down because, well, everybody has toilet paper. It's abundant. Well, when the Fed prints a whole bunch of money with the help of the Treasury Department, our paper dollars, our cash, works kind of like toilet paper because the Fed is pumping up the supply of our dollars exponentially. That increases the supply of our dollars, which makes the value of each dollar you have come down. This printing of money causes our currency to lose value, which makes the price of everything, your rent, your groceries, your medical bills, to go up because you need more money, more paper dollars to afford these things. This is what inflation is. That means printing money makes the value of your savings and your salary come down because the price of everything around you goes up. The second and more obvious cost of printing money is your tax dollars. When the government wants to bail out a company, they go to the Fed and they tell the Fed to print $50 billion. And then the Fed prints that $50 billion and then they loan that money to the government, and the government gives that money to a company. Well, after the government gives this money to a company, the government has to pay this money back to the Fed plus interest. And remember, the government gets their money to fund all their activities through you, taxpayers. So that means more of your tax dollars are going to be used for paying down debt and paying interest payments instead of actually paying for services that you would actually like to see. So when you hear the term bailout, you should assume that means money's going to be printed. And when money's going to be printed, that means that you, innocent, hardworking taxpayers, are gonna pay the price through higher inflation, the devaluation of your savings, and higher taxes. Now that you understand the cost, let's talk about what just happened, because this is unprecedented. When a big company starts failing, they might go to Congress and ask for a bailout. This way they don't have to go into bankruptcy and lay off tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. You pay the price, but an argument can be made that this bailout is for the betterment of America, because now this business gets to stay in business and now hundreds of thousands of people get to keep their jobs. I'm not saying it's right, but that's what the argument is. When a stimulus plan gets approved, like sending checks to all Americans or paying down student debt for all Americans, it's a very similar process because the government has to get approval, and then they're going to go to the Fed, ask the Fed to print hundreds of billions of dollars, the Fed will loan this money to the government, and then the government will send this money to you through checks or by paying down your student loans if you have any. Again, you're the one that has to pay the price, but an argument can be made that it's for the betterment of America because now Americans have money to pay their bills and they have less debt. Again, I'm not saying that's right, but that's what the argument is. Well, the latest bailout that just happened has no possible way of helping the American people. So I hope you ate your breakfast this morning, because this one is going to make you feel sick to your stomach. The Fed is now entering the private markets with their printing machine without the approval of the government to bail out wealthy investors who made bad investments. This is the first time in American history that we've ever seen an investor bailout like this. The Fed came out in their usual fashion and they made a statement that was very hard to understand. They said that they wanted to smooth the transition of monetary policy through supporting the flow of credit by purchasing private securities through an open-ended quantitative easing. Now look, I'm an attorney, I'm an investor, and I run a financial news company. So I'm pretty qualified to understand things that don't make any sense. But if I struggle to keep up with what the Fed says, how is anyone else supposed to understand what they're saying? And that's not an accident. Because if the general public could understand what the Fed just said, then people would lose faith in the entire financial system. Let me translate what just happened. The Fed came out and they said that they were worried about the investment market, so the stock market and the bond market, because the investment market has come down significantly. So they are willing to print an unlimited amount of money, so the open-ended quantitative easing, to purchase investments. This way investors don't have to worry about their investments going to zero. Now, as a little caveat, the Fed originally said that they would be willing to print up to $700 billion for this investor bailout, but I guess they felt that that $700 billion wasn't enough. So then they came out and said that they would be willing to do this open-ended quantitative easing, so pretty much an unlimited amount of money. Now, if you have money in the stock market or the 401k, you might be thinking, oh wow, well at least his bailout is gonna help me. But the part that you're missing is that this investor bailout doesn't bail out regular investors. They're not bailing you out. The Fed is just printing money so they can buy certain funds, and chances are you don't own them. So this investor bailout is really only bailing out a few certain select investors. The rumor is that the Fed is going to be buying some treasury bonds, some mortgage-backed security ETFs, and some corporate bond ETFs. Now, I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I did some poking around on the two biggest funds that the Fed is supposedly buying in the corporate bond ETF space, and what I found was pretty interesting. Turns out both of these funds don't have a whole bunch of regular people investing in them. They're held by large institutions. And ironically, both of these funds have some of the exact same large shareholders: Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and Fisher Asset Management. Coincidence? I don't know, but that's not all. If you invest in a stock or a fund or anything, the price of the stock or fund depends on the number of buyers and sellers that there are. If you have more buyers than sellers, the price of the stock or fund will go up. If you have more sellers than buyers, then the price of the stock or fund will come down. Investing has risks. You are never guaranteed to make money when you invest. You might even lose money. Everybody should know that, especially if you are a professional investor who is investing millions, if not billions of dollars. Well, apparently, the Fed doesn't necessarily agree with that. The Fed is going to be buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of crappy investments from these wealthy institutions who were losing money on their investments, and now they have a free way out because the Fed is going to be coming in and bailing them out because they don't want to see these wealthy people lose money on their investments. In other words, the Fed is artificially propping up the price of these crappy investments that way their rich investor friends can sell at your expense. Now, you might be wondering, wait, Jasprit, you're an attorney. Is that even legal? Well, remember what I said in the beginning of this video. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal organization. They don't need government approval to do what they want. They're a private entity. You and I will just have to hope that they act ethically. That's how most private entities work. I mean, Minority Mindset is a private financial news and education company. We can write whatever we want in our newsletters without the government approving it, and you and I hope that whatever we do is ethical. The difference between most private entities and the Fed is that the Fed has the power to print unlimited amounts of money to further their agenda at your expense, while other private entities can't. The Fed just completely bypassed the system to bail out these wealthy institutions and investors. It seems like if you're friends with the Fed and you make a bad investment and you don't want to lose money on this mistake that you made, you can just call up the Fed and ask them to come in with their blank checkbook and artificially prop up the price of this investment that you're losing money on. This way you can sell for a profit and then give this crappy investment to the Fed and let taxpayers pay for it. Investing has risks. If you make a bad investment, you should lose money. That's what encourages people to make smart investments. But if that rule only applies to regular people, what does that make the entire financial system? This investor bailout is not going to help regular people stay employed. It's not going to help the American people pay their bills. I mean, this investor bailout is a pure bailout for rich people who made a bad investment but don't want to pay the price for the bad investment, and so now the Fed is coming in and buying this bad investment at the price of taxpayers. As unfortunate as it is, I don't know how else to say it. That being said, I want to remind you that if you want to stay up to date on what's happening in the crazy finance and business world, we have the free Minority Mindset newsletter where our team first breaks down the top finance and business news, and then we show you how this news affects your wallet. This way you can be smart with your money. This newsletter is completely free, and you can join our newsletter by clicking the link up here or by clicking the link in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, share it with one friend. That way we can help spread the word. If you want to learn more about investing in the stock market right now, I already made a video on it, and you can watch this video on YouTube by clicking this button right over here. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.